Welcome to the next video in my series about the Dark Eye core rules. The next chapter is chapter 9 about combat, and I try to explain the combat in detail, at least the basics. I'm not going through all the maneuvers you can make and explain how they work, what the game mechanic behind them. But the basic combat, attack, parry, initiative, what options you have during combat, I will explain in general, and so you get the feeling you know how it works. At least that's what I hope. So, and before we go through the pages one after another, let me start by explaining combat in my words and the complete combat round or complete combat. When you get into combat, it starts with rolling for initiative. Your initiative is, I'm not quite sure, it is, let's say it's from 10 to 20. That is your base initiative, somewhere in there, maybe lower, maybe not that high or higher. I'm not quite sure what the maximum and minimum values there are. You have the base initiative between 10 and 20, and then you roll a d6 and add it together. And that will be your initiative, and in every combat round during the combat, everybody is acting in order of initiative, beginning with the highest initiative. So the person with the highest initiative, the character with the highest initiative begin, and usually the character would attack. So he's rolling an attack test that works exactly like an attribute test. You roll as high as your attack or below, then you hit your opponent. When you hit your opponent, then he makes a defense test. He can roll on parry or he can roll on dodge. And it's just like an attribute test. He has to roll equal or less, and then he dodges or parries. If he doesn't, you hit and you roll a damage roll. You roll something like 1d plus 4, that would be a sword, and your opponent, from what you roll, your opponent subtracts his armor value. The armor value is between 0 and 7. So let's say I roll an 8 because I roll a 4, 1d6 plus 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, and your opponent has an armor value of 3 or 4, that would be a leather armor or a chain armor. Then he would take 5 or 4 damage, and his vitality, his hit points, would be lowered by 4 or 5. And that was a complete attack, and after that the next one in the initiative order is on and can attack. You have other options during, instead of attacking, you can run around, draw a weapon, do something else, but usually it's this attack, parry, damage, next one. You also have, instead of just attacking, you have the option to use maneuvers. That is, for example, you can make an attack that would lower the defense of your opponent, so your attack will more likely succeed, or you can make an attack that does more damage. And I'm going through the list of special abilities and maneuvers you can use during combat. I'm not going to explain them in detail, like what really they change and what you have to roll in terms of numbers and stuff. But I will tell you what I just told you. There is this attack and it does more damage, and there's this attack that lowers your opponent's defense, and so on. I think that sums everything up. That's the basic of combat, and I'm now going through the pages and we will see what else there is, and if I want to tell you something of that in detail. It starts here with a definition of a combat round. A combat round is the time in which everybody acts once in order of initiative. So you have several combat rounds during a combat, and one combat round lasts for about 2 to 5 seconds. It's not a fixed time, it is 2 to 5 seconds, depending on what is happening or whatever you like to measure. Then they explain initiative. you have an initiative base value and you add the d6. Your initiative is based on your attributes. It is calculated based on your attributes. And you can also get modifiers on it by knowing, or can you? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure if this still is the option. You could, in the 4th edition, learn special abilities that give you a bonus on your initiative. I'm not quite sure. We will see. I think there are modifications you get to the initiative that is calculated based on your attributes. It's based on attributes plus modifications, like special abilities or something. The next explains what options you have during combat with your action. When during every combat round, everybody in the combat has one action, one free action, and can parry, defend, by parrying or by dodging. You have one action. The action is usually something that is more time consuming and binds you for that turn, like attacking or like running a longer distance or drawing a weapon or loading a bow or something like that. A free action is something short you could do within that. For example, move a short distance or just yell something, warn someone, throw just say a few words or something. That is a free action. And with defense, you can defend as often as your defense value allows, because every new defense gets a modifier of -3. So the first defense is normal, the second is -3, the third is -6, and you can do so as long as your defense value stays positive. So, yeah, then they explain longer lasting actions. That is, for example, loading a bow, aiming and shooting. That may take 2 actions. And then the question, what happens if I get attacked during that actions? Or often a lot of combat spells can be cast in 1 action, but there are some that take more actions, or maybe you are not in the combat, but you're casting a spell for some other reason than combat. And then the question is, what happens when I get attacked? How do I deal with that when I'm casting a spell? And what happens when I'm loading the bow and get attacked? And this is described here in this section. Then they explain how you can move, what distance you can move in combat, how fast, slow. And then starts an in-detail description of close combat, melee combat. I think before I start with this, I'll make a cut here and hope to fit everything else into one video that is not too long. Yeah, so that's for now. If you have any questions about the combat, what I explained, if I didn't explain it very clearly, ask questions in the comment section and I try to answer them. But for now, that's it.